At the time of me filming this video, it has now been 9 days since Kendrick Lamar dropped his album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Now, the album has gotten mixed reviews from people. Me personally, I think that the album was an absolute masterpiece. And I think the album is going over a lot of people's heads in the sense that they try to put him in this box of being a conscious rapper when he never asked to be put in that box. Okay, this album is essentially him conflating his childhood trauma with societal issues, and him basically making a call to action subliminally for other people to examine their childhood traumas in order to curb societal issues, because societal issues are just individual issues at the mass level. And with things like social media in place and the internet in general, it's much easier for these individual issues to seep out and become societal issues. Okay, so that's why I'm making this video, is because I want to take his call to action and share some of my experiences, but also help you guys examine your childhood traumas so that you can be free, okay? So that you can stop harboring the core wounds that have held you back for so long. You see, the thing that you have to understand about childhood trauma is that it affects the way that you view yourself. And the way that you view yourself is the way that you view the world. If you have a negative perception of yourself because of childhood trauma, you'll have a negative view of the world as well. Okay, as within, so without. You have to learn to first illuminate your childhood trauma and then act accordingly in order to heal your childhood trauma. Now understand that this video alone will not heal you. I'm just showing you how to initiate the process and how to move through that process in the most fluid and efficient way possible, such that you can not only heal your childhood trauma, but maintain some semblance of mental stability through the process. Now, these past few months have been very difficult for me. If anybody's been following my channel since maybe January or February, or even dating back to last year, around August of last year, you'll see that my vibe changed a little bit. I don't see things the same way anymore. I don't speak the same way anymore. Okay, I'm not this type A person that I used to be. I'm a lot more sensitive. I'm a lot more introspective than I used to be. I realized that success, money, validation, these things can't get me the feeling that I'm truly looking for, the feeling of love, the type of love that only you can give yourself. Okay, and what I've realized over time is that childhood trauma is the only thing preventing me from loving myself in the way that I want to love myself. Now, with me personally, okay, I've been reading multiple books, which I do have a video coming out in the near future explaining some of the books that have changed my life and helped me initiate the process of healing from childhood trauma. But ultimately, this process is a very personal process that must be taken at a personal level. Okay, it all starts with awareness. You have to be aware of the source of your childhood trauma. That's the key. You have to find why you have childhood trauma. But of course, it starts with self-awareness, figuring out how your childhood trauma is affecting you. For example, I realized recently that I have a deeply embedded victim complex. A deeply embedded victim complex. A big part of that is from society, okay? Taking in certain types of media as a young child, watching these rap videos that portrayed African American men in handcuffs and just in these positions of victimization, with materialism being the only means to transcend that victim complex. Over time, I developed that same complex, and it was reinforced through my day-to-day life growing up, and there was a cumulative effect where I generated so much momentum that eventually I reached my breaking point. I realized that if I want to create the life that I want to create, I can no longer buy into that belief. Because of that, my whole world came crashing down on me because I suddenly had much more power than I knew what to do with. It's kind of like being institutionalized. Okay, and this is something that you guys will hear about in my next poetry book. Stay tuned for that. But how do you go about making these realizations? How do you go about learning about your childhood traumas and just initiating that process of shadow work? It starts with taking the initiative. Okay, shadow work doesn't happen to you. You have to take the initiative. Now, there are a few ways that you can take that initiative. The first way that you can take that initiative to start the shadow work process and heal your inner child is through therapy. And that brings me to BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video. During hard times, it can get really difficult if you don't have anyone to talk to. Being alone with your thoughts can be a very isolating feeling that allows negativity to consume you. I know that me personally, in these last few months, there have been times where I've almost reached my breaking point because I felt like I was completely alone, but I had my weekly therapy sessions to look forward to, And truth be told, that saved me. A lot of times that actually saved me. Even just the thought of having those therapy sessions coming up was enough for me to hold myself together. BetterHelp has customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist so that you don't ever have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. There's a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network, a lot of which may not be locally available in many areas. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you'll get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Then you can schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages and everything you share is completely confidential. I know that's something that me and my therapist, Janice, shout out to her, something that we talk about at length is the relationship with the self. And the relationship with the self is rooted in your relationship with your childlike self, your inner child. You can request a new therapist at any time for no additional charge. Join the over 2 million plus people, including myself, who have taken charge of their mental health by seeking professional therapy through BetterHelp. In fact, so many people use BetterHelp that they're currently recruiting new therapists in all 50 states. Get 10% off of your first month at betterhelp.com/Jordan Green. That's betterhelp.com/Jordan Green, or just click the link in the description. Invest in yourself. Okay, therapy is a great way to initiate the shadow work process because it allows you the opportunity to talk to somebody who's objective. Now, in addition to therapy, another great way to initiate the shadow work process is through journaling. You hear me talk about journaling a lot on this channel, and that is for a reason. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these last few months I haven't been journaling as much as I used to, and it definitely showed. My thoughts were a lot more scattered, I lacked a lot of self-awareness, and I was much more vulnerable to negative thought attacks. Okay, sudden, random barrages of negative thoughts and negative belief systems that were rooted in that childhood trauma. But now that I've begun journaling again on a regular basis, at least a few times a week, that's really allowed me to develop that self-awareness and just observe myself from a third person point of view, without judgment, without bias. Being able to objectively observe myself and say, that is the reason why I have this recurring thought. And that recurring thought is the reason why I have this recurring behavioral pattern. Okay, a lot of people who struggle with NoFap, for example, probably have childhood trauma related to exposure to sexual activity at a young age. So being able to examine the root cause of your issues through things like therapy and journaling really goes a long way in developing a more positive self-perception and being able to navigate through life in a conscious and intentional way. It allows you to cultivate and manifest the life that you desire because you no longer have those inner blockages that are preventing you from knowing yourself enough to be who you need to be to manifest the life that you desire. Okay, your conscious thoughts are not what manifest themselves into your reality. That's the biggest misconception about manifestation. Manifestation occurs at the subconscious level. It is your shadow thoughts, your shadow beliefs. It is the trauma that you've repressed for decades. Okay, it is your perception of love that was heavily influenced by the way that your parents loved you, or maybe the way that your parents loved each other. And now, as you've gotten older, you've built upon that. And now you've made this agreement with yourself that love is this way. When in reality, love is entirely in the gray area. There's no black or white in love, and there's no black or white in life. Okay, everything is gray area. But the shade of gray is determined by your childhood self-perception, the way that you learn to view yourself and thus the world as a child. As a child, we draw big conclusions based on isolated events. And then as we progress through life, we reinforce these conclusions in order to satiate our needs to be right. You see, we don't like to be wrong about ourselves. The ego does not like to be wrong, especially about itself. So once you develop such a strongly rooted belief, especially as a child, okay, in those formative years, age 0 to 8, where your brain is developing faster than it ever will again, that's where you develop these big conclusions that you reinforce or perpetuate through your life events. Okay, you subconsciously seek out justification for your beliefs. That's life, okay, and that's manifestation at its core right there, is learning to reprogram your subconscious mind by first illuminating what is already there, illuminating the shadows so that you can face the beliefs head on. And yes, it's a very uncomfortable process, but it's necessary. You have to go through it. I'm not here to tell you that it's easy. I'm here to tell you that it's worth it. Okay? And guys like Kendrick Lamar are abundantly aware of that. And they're living proof that if you can examine your shadows, not only will you find success, but you'll find peace of mind as well.